A movement disorder is a condition that arises in the brain which makes a person either make too much movements or too little movements. These movements are not within the control of the person. They do not initiate such abnormal movements and they are unable to control it. The pattern of the movements are also quite different from what normal people make. Therefore, we call these movements abnormal and involuntary. Most of these movements are excessive. Sometimes the movements can be too little. The patients can move quite slowly, the muscles will be stiff and they may also have poor balance. That condition is called Parkinsonism. And movement disorders arise when there is a dysfunction in the circuits of the brain that control movements. These circuits are called the basal ganglia circuits and they are responsible for us making smooth, fluid movements without any unwanted movements interfering with it. A number of conditions can produce movement disorders, the most common of which is Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is a neurological disorder that affects the elderly. On an average, it occurs at around the age of 60 to 65, but about 10% of patients may have this disease even in their 40s and 50s. So as the age advances, an individual is at increased risk of developing Parkinson's disease. So here the disease is caused by degeneration or loss of cells in a critical area of the brain called the basal ganglia, and it affects the functions of the basal ganglia circuit that control normal movement. So these cells produce a critical compound called dopamine, a neurotransmitter, which is necessary for electrical signaling in these circuits. So when the level of the dopamine falls below a critical level, the functioning of the basal ganglia circuits are affected and the patients start experiencing the abnormal movements. These movements are often tremor or shaking of the limbs when the limbs are in a rested position. It can happen in the hands or in the legs or even the head. It also produces slowness of all movements. The day-to-day activities get slowed down, walking gets slowed down. The patients feel that their limbs are quite stiff or rigid. And in the later course of the disease, they may be unable to control their movements. As I said, Parkinson's disease is due to the deficiency of the neurotransmitter dopamine in the brain. So medical treatment is aimed at replacing the levels of dopamine in the brain. And medications are extremely effective in treating the symptoms of Parkinson's disease in the early years of treatment. But after about 3 to 5 years, the response to treatment starts fluctuating. Patients require a larger number of doses in order to get the same effect. The duration of benefit of the drug comes down from 6 to 8 hours to finally 1 or 2 hours. So when the effect of the drug wears off, they have severe recurrence of the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. The tremor, the stiffness and the slowness come back, and many of the patients become quite disabled and unable to get up from the bed or chair or move around and do things independently. When they take the medications, the symptoms completely subside and they are able to walk and move around. But during the course of this period, when they have the best benefits, a new phenomenon appears. Unwanted excessive movements start appearing in the good times, and this is because of abnormally high levels of dopamine in the brains of these patients. So these treatment-related complications and the shortening of benefit of drugs are called motor fluctuations and dyskinesias. Once a person starts experiencing these two phenomena, it's time to intervene surgically and offer them deep brain stimulation. Deep brain stimulation is the technique of continuously electrically stimulating the basal ganglionic circuits which control movements. And this is achieved by delivering current through two fine electrodes which are implanted on either side of the brain within certain specific areas in the basal ganglia. So this type of surgery is called stereotaxy. It does not involve exposing large areas of the brain or dissection in the brain, but two tiny holes are made on the surface of the skull and the electrodes are guided to reach these specific targets. This planning of the trajectory is done by using brain MRI scan as well as advanced software programs. During the surgery, the accuracy of reaching the target is further ascertained by the neurologist who will do electrical recordings of the brain during this time to see whether the electrode has reached the right target. They also deliver a test stimulation or test electric current into the brain to see whether stimulating that particular area will provide the person relief of Parkinsonian symptoms and whether it produces any unwanted side effects because of electrical stimulation. Patients remain awake during this phase of surgery and they are able to cooperate with the neurological evaluation and report both benefits and any unwanted side effects that they have. So after this phase, they are given general anesthesia and a sophisticated pacemaker-like device is implanted in a pocket on the surface of the chest wall underneath the skin, and this is below the collarbone and most often on the left side. So the brain electrodes and the pacemaker on the surface of the chest wall are connected by extension cables which run under the skin of the neck and behind the ear. Once the surgery is over, after a couple of weeks, the patients are called back and the system can be activated using a remote controller-like device. The neurologist will then decide the quantum of current that is required for the relief of symptoms of the patient. They will also check whether there are any side effects from electrical stimulation of the brain. It's also important to adjust the dose of drugs because electrical stimulation by itself will reduce Parkinsonian symptoms overall by around 60 to 70%. Individual symptoms may improve even further, and once the symptoms improve, the patients will not require the same amount of drugs as before the DBS. So the drugs are reduced by around 50% and a fine balance is achieved between the degree of electrical stimulation and the dose of drugs so that patients are able to function independently even if they do not have the effect of the drugs. In Parkinson's disease, DBS is offered in 3 scenarios. One is when the patients develop these response fluctuations and unwanted side effects of drugs. Secondly, even if the patient is quite early in the disease and does not have these fluctuations, if they have very severe trauma that does not respond to medications, then they can be offered surgery quite early and DBS is able to almost completely suppress the tremors of Parkinson's disease. And a third scenario is when patients cannot tolerate high dose of drugs and they start developing hallucinations or behavioral changes as a side effect of drugs. Because DBS can improve symptoms without any additional medications and bring it down to, by about 50 to 60%, it is possible to reduce the dose of drugs also by 50%. So all the side effects related to drugs, whether it is hallucinations or unwanted excessive movements, all will subside after DBS when the medications are reduced. It's very critical to choose the right patient with Parkinson's disease for deep brain stimulation. It is not for all patients and it is not for all stages of the disease. It should not be offered very early in the course of the disease when symptoms are well controlled with drugs, and it's not also suitable for patients who are very advanced in the course of the disease, who have a number of falls even when they take medications, or who have cognitive decline or dementia as we call it. So choosing the right patient at the right time in the course of the disease is very critical. Patients have to be medically stable. Diseases like hypertension and diabetes have to be well controlled. They should not have any major diseases like cancers or uncontrolled cardiac diseases and such, which can affect their lifespan. A multidisciplinary team comprising of the movement disorder specialist, a neuropsychologist and a stereotactic surgeon together make the decision on which patient to operate. This is very critical. As I said, now patients should be referred once they start experiencing fluctuations in the response to treatment, when patients start requiring more than 3 to 4 doses of tablets per day, or if they develop these unwanted side effects. In the earlier years, DBS has been around for over 20 years now. In the earlier years, DBS was offered to patients when they had severe disability because of the drug-induced side effects or because of these fluctuations. But several studies have shown that if DBS is offered early in the course of the disease, when these problems just begin to start, that those patients tend to do much better than those who are treated with medications alone. So early referral of patients who have these problems is very critical. And as I said, patients whose symptoms, which particularly tremor that does not respond to medication, should also be referred for surgery, because DBS can almost cure that tremor. Several studies, hundreds of studies have been done on the efficacy and safety of DBS, and it has been found to be highly efficacious in reducing these motor fluctuations, reducing the dyskinesias, improving the quality of life of patients and making them functionally independent. So the response can vary among patients, but on an average, a total improvement of around 50 to 60% can be expected in a well-selected patient. The battery that is used in the pacemaker-like device can be either a rechargeable one or one with a fixed life. The one with a fixed life usually lasts for about 3 to 5 years, after which the battery alone needs to be replaced from under the skin of the chest. The rechargeable ones last for about 15 to 25 years, and they need to be recharged from outside using a charging device 3 or 4 times a week. So rechargeable batteries avoid the risk of repeated surgeries, the need for repeated surgeries, whereas it gives the person the responsibility of recharging their batteries often. The non-rechargeable ones, it's a one-time thing, but it does not require any recharging, but the persons will have to undergo repeated surgeries when the battery life ends. The cost is also quite different. The rechargeable ones are twice as expensive as the fixed life batteries.